sucker here. I guess I came over just in time.
You sure did, Tech. I'm about to show Joe and Andy some service tips on the 55 cars. You want to give us a hand?
Be glad to, Fred. I got a few pointers I'd like to toss in myself.
Good. You know, some owners say the deck lid's hard to close and keep closed. They slam it down, and when it doesn't latch, they remark, see, it doesn't close, even when I slam it. What some owners don't realize is that slamming the lid shut traps air in the trunk, and that often makes it hard to close. So let's tell owners to bring the lid down to about a foot from the latched position. Then they can push it down sharply, and usually it'll latch.
Okay, but suppose it doesn't latch or stay closed. Then what?
Well, Joe, in those cases, there are adjustments you can make. Let's talk them over. First of all, check the overall fit of the deck lid. It may need to be centered in the opening, or it may be adjusted so it compresses the weather strip too much, making it hard to close. If this is the case, realign the lid so it's evenly spaced all around, and adjust the hinges so there's a good seal without too much compression.
Yeah, and if you find the deck lid's hitting the lower opening and chipping paint, install a rubber bumper on the lower inside panel of the deck lid.
Right, Tech. Now, before adjusting the latch or striker bar, put somebody inside the trunk with a flashlight. Then close the lid to see what kind of interference there might be. In addition, the wear pattern on the striker bar and latch will give you a clue as to which kind of adjustment should be made. The latch has vertically slotted mounting holes, so it can be moved up and down. The striker can be moved sideways for alignment with the latch.
And a lot of fellas are getting good results with 2 hammers. You tell them, Fred.
Oh, yeah. In some cases, the latch has too much side play inside the striker. To cut down clearance between the striker and rotor, take a medium-sized hammer, hold it at one side of the striker, and hit the other side with another hammer. That will close up the opening slightly and eliminate the side play.
I had a case the other day where the lid closed all right, but the rotor didn't latch.
Uh-huh. Well, if the latch is too far to the right, the rotor won't trip into latching position soon enough. So shift the striker until the rotor just clears the side. Well, I guess that's enough on deck lid closing. I have another service tip to cover. Specifically, it's the installation of quarter window guide bumpers on Chrysler and DeSoto cars. Too much quarter window side play in the down position has been making a rattling noise on some 1955 hardtops and convertibles. To eliminate this noise, you can install 2 quarter window guide bumpers at each quarter window. These bumpers have a cat's whisker strip which contacts the frame and glass when the quarter window is raised or lowered. Each bumper is attached by 2 screws to the top flange of each quarter panel. One is installed on the inside panel, the other on the outside panel.
Anything special about that installation?
Well, you'll save a lot of time and effort if you remove the quarter glass and frame assembly.
Tech's right. So take out the rear seat and back, as well as the upper and lower quarter trim panels. Lower the window next, so you can back out the Allen set screw enough to remove the pivot pin. Then partially raise the window so you can disengage the regulator arm from its track and lift out the window. Now you're ready to install the bumpers. You'll find the bumper installation details in this reference book.
That book also covers the slight differences you'll find in the inner quarter panel flange.
Oh, yeah. Right where you install that inner bumper, some flanges will have a cutout and screw slots. Some will have only a cutout. Others will have neither cutout nor screw slot.
As long as it's in the book, Fred, Andy and I can figure it out. But after installing the bumpers, what then?
Well, you'll have to adjust the bumpers with the window down so there's about 1/8 inch sidewise movement of the window between the bumpers. That's so the lower frame won't catch under the bumpers when the window's raised to closed position. After adjusting the bumpers, raise the glass slowly and watch how it enters the upper glass run channel. If the window frame doesn't enter the channel, you'll have to adjust the guide slide.
What do you mean, the guide slide?
Well, the guide slide is this curved track on which the rear corner of the window rides as the glass is raised or lowered. 2 slotted attaching screw holes provide an in or out adjustment. After adjusting the slide, check window travel again. It should enter the upper channel without any interference.
Yeah, and the glass generally works best when it rides the inside bumper.
Once in a great while, you might have to shift the glass run channel in or out for proper alignment. Slotted holes at the attaching screws make this possible. The entire glass and frame assembly can also be moved fore and aft, up and down, or in and out by means of this adjustable hinge plate.
Right. And incidentally, boys, wipe off any excess Mobar lubriplate so it won't leave streaks on the window.
Okay, Tech. Joe and I'll watch it. Just knowing where to make these adjustments is a big help. Now, what else is new?
That's a leading question, Andy, but I've got a suggestion. Why not go into adjustments on convertible tops, Fred? They haven't changed too much, but there are some things you may want to point out.
Good idea, Tech. I have some pointers on tops. First of all, before you make any top adjustments, check the fit of the doors. That will tell you if the body bolts are shimmed properly. Then see that the body bolts are up to torque specifications.
What's that got to do with the top?
It's got a lot, Joe. Improperly shimmed or tightened body bolts can cause body misalignment. Then the top won't fit properly over the doors and quarter windows or at the windshield header. There are 5 main adjustments of the top linkage and metal frame assembly. I'll point them out one at a time and describe the conditions they're designed to control. You'll notice adjusting screws at the folding hinges in the side rails. The forward hinge adjusting screw controls alignment of the side rail above the door, which affects the fit of the glass in the weather strip. If the rail is too far above the door, so the door glass doesn't go up into the weather strip, you turn the adjusting screw in to lower the side rail at that point. The rear hinge adjusting screw controls side rail alignment above the rear quarter window. If there is too much space between the top of the window and side rail weather strip, turn the adjusting screw in to lower the side rail.
Speaking of adjustments, somebody better turn this record over. We've about run out of talking space on this side.
I've got a question, Fred. Suppose the whole top needs to be moved forward. Say the top is short at the windshield, or there's space at the back of the rear quarter window.
Well, that would call for adjusting the power link, Joe. We'll use the DeSoto to point out these adjustments. It's the same for Chrysler, too.
Plymouth and Dodge power link is a little different, and you'll find that story in the reference book.
Power link adjustments are made by loosening these 2 cap screws that fasten the 2 sections of this 2-piece link and extending or shortening the link.
Shortening the adjusting link causes the top to move further forward when the power cylinder moves out to the extreme of its travel. Lengthening the link decreases this travel.
Suppose the top fits all right at the rear of the quarter window, but it's still short at the windshield. What can you do about that?
Well, there's an adjustment designed to stretch out the top material for a better fit and easier latching of the top to the windshield header.
On each side of the top, loosen the 4 bolts that connect the header to the side rail. Then push the header forward.
Next, you adjust the vertical prop link. Actually, it controls leveling and centering of the top at the roof side rail seals above the door glass, and also the leveling of the top header with the windshield header. So, you loosen 2 bolts that hold the mounting plate on the lower end of the prop link. Then, move the plate up and down to level the top, fore and aft or side to side. If the top doesn't raise or lower smoothly, the front side rail pivot may be out of alignment. That would cause a bind in the side rail and might damage the rail or the linkage. Just loosen the front pivot bracket attaching screws and tap the bracket lightly toward the rear.
Don't move it very much. A 1/16 of an inch will often be enough.
Right. And as you can see, these adjustments aren't too tough to make, but they are important. When they're made right, the top will raise and lower smoothly and will fit right all the way around.
And locking the top to the header is easy when you know how. You better set the boys straight on that, Fred.
That's right. And we should be sure our customers are told about it, too. Starting with the top in the well, turn the instrument panel switch to raise position. Hold it there until the top comes fully forward, down on the windshield header. Then, reach up between the header and the top covering with one hand and pull down on the header. At the same time, turn the switch to raise position again for an instant. Then, still holding the header down, push the latching handle forward to lock the header to the windshield.
Why turn the motor on again? Can't I just latch it?
Well, not always, Joe. When the switch is turned off, the pistons in the power cylinders tend to settle back slightly. That puts tension on the top, making it difficult to lock. By turning the switch to raise position while pulling down on the header, the pistons again extend fully. This gives a final boost to the top, making it easier to latch. Then, push the handle forward to lock the top. A button on the handle mechanism should click into a notch on the lever cam. This click tells you the handle moved far enough to rotate the locking cams into closed position.
And you want to make sure the locking cams have rotated under and behind the cam stops in the windshield header.
If the cam doesn't go up behind the cam stop, you can put a shim between the header and the stop to lower it. Or you may want to install a new stop that's a little longer. On Chrysler and DeSoto convertibles, you may find a handle lever cam with 2 notches. Make sure you hear 2 clicks when you close the handle. Well, does that about take care of top adjustments?
It sure does, Fred. Now, Joe had a question on the premium engine used in the Dodge truck, 2.5 ton and up.
Yeah, Joe was wondering about that oil pressure drop during high-speed acceleration. Now, I know that we rarely talk about truck topics when we get together, but I think a lot of mechanics will be interested in this engine condition.
I think you're right, Tech. A Dodge job-rated truck is apt to stop in any service department, so it's something all of us ought to know about. Let's consider the 241 cubic inch premium engine first. This condition Joe's brought up is one in which the oil pressure is normal during idle speed. It continues normal up to about 40 to 45 pounds during low-speed acceleration. Further acceleration at higher speeds results in a noticeable pressure drop of about 10 to 15 pounds.
Yeah, and that drop can happen during any engine speed operation above 3,000 RPM.
What causes that drop in pressure?
Resistance to the flow of oil in the passage between the pump and main oil gallery, Joe. At higher speeds, some back pressure develops in the passages when oil pump output increases. During acceleration, it's enough to cause a 10 or 15 pound pressure drop in the main gallery.
Fred, I could have guessed that. What I want to know is what we can do about it.
All right, Joe. Okay, here's the story. Keep in mind that the vertical oil passage from the pump to the main gallery is plugged about 1 inch above the mating surface of the rear main bearing cap. Plugging that passage routes oil from the pump to the oil filter check valve plate on the right side of the block. Some of the oil goes through the check valve plate to the filter. The rest is shunted through the check valve plate to the main oil gallery. Now, you can remove that plug from the vertical oil passage and install an oil pressure relief valve body in its place.
That relief valve body has a passage through it, which permits oil to go directly to the main gallery. Then you'd have normal oil pressure there at all speeds without changing operation of the filter.
Is it much of a job to install this valve body, Fred?
No, Joe. You remove the ball check valve from the passage. Then drill and tap for a 5/16 cap screw in the bottom of the plug. Then put a washer or 2 on a 5/16 cap screw. Turn the screw into the tapped hole and draw the plug out of the passage. Next, install the valve body of the oil pressure relief valve into the vertical oil passage with the prongs pointed downward. The valve body prevents the ball of the check valve from going up into the oil passage.
Right. Finish up the job by reinstalling the ball check valve, rear main bearing cap, and the oil pan.
Just what is the job of that ball check valve?
Well, it keeps oil up in the main gallery when the engine isn't running. Then when the engine starts again, oil is immediately available for the bearings.
What do we do if the same condition comes up on the 331 cubic inch engine?
Well, instead of a plug, Andy, the 331 has an oil pressure relief valve in the vertical oil passage. You'll find a story on taking care of that engine in the reference book.
Swell, Fred. Joe and I will sure read up on it.
Fine. And that about covers all I had in mind today. You got anything you want to add, Tech?
Only this. Some of the service suggestions we covered are easy to make. Others are a little more complicated, but Whether a job is tough or easy, it's the final result that counts. That's when you can tell a master technician from an ordinary mechanic.